Friendslop is a relatively new term being used to describe games that share resemblance to Lethal Company, such as Murky Divers, Repo, Headliners, and Content Warning. But why? Why are these games considered Friendslop? I don't really understand. I know the term is being used in a negative light, but what are the negative aspects of these games? What is it that makes Friendslop Friendslop? Finding a solid definition for something created by the internet can be a little tricky. Everyone tends to have their own thoughts on the matter. I'm no exception. I attempted to make my own list of bullet points to use as criteria. Unfortunately, I had to throw most of that out since the more research I did, the more games I found that were considered Friendslop, yet had gameplay that was fairly different from Lethal Company's horror, quota, time limit, level-based co-op gameplay, such as Among Us, Chained Together, and Peak. The one thing that remained constant was the fact that all these games were multiplayer. But that is just too broad. Where is the line in the sand? I really need some sort of definition. I tried looking on Merriam-Webster's.com and on dictionary.cambridge.org and on dictionary.com and on oed.com and on urbandictionary.com and on... Oh, wait. It says here, Friendslop is a term that originated in 2025 to describe the type of games like Lethal Company and Repo. In general, they are co-op multiplayer games that feature proximity voice chat, relying on internal banter for the majority of gameplay enjoyment. On the other hand, a single-player experience doesn't offer much. There it is. Simple and to the point. I can work with that. Proximity voice chat is the key feature in most Friendslop games. It's where most of the fun comes from. I can attest to that. I've played Lethal Company with friends, and I've played Repo with friends, and in both cases, it was absolutely a blast, joking around, running from monsters, and hearing screams suddenly get cut off. Not quite sure what happened. But I've also played these games alone to familiarize myself with the controls and just practice in general. And yeah, it wasn't nearly as fun. Both these games don't really have an ending or anything to really work towards, other than just hanging out with friends and trying to beat another level. They really are games that are about the journey over the destination, those experiences that are made along the way. So I would say Lethal Company and Repo are in fact Friendslop. What about the other games I mentioned though? I have a couple points of criteria I can look at to determine whether a game is Friendslop or not now, so why don't I take a look? I'll be checking for proximity chat and whether or not the game can be played alone, and if it can be played alone, if it's still fun. I'm kind of curious, so I guess I'll give these games a play, and I'll do it by myself and see if they're really worthy of the title Friendslop. First up, Murky Divers. This game is very similar to Lethal Company in the sense you're trying to collect items to reach a quota, but instead of odds and ends, it's body parts that could be used as incriminating evidence against PharmaCorp, the company you're working for. Once collected, you have to dispose of the evidence. Oh my. There are monsters that will swim around and attempt to get you while you're searching around these odd but fun facilities and structures. Okay, does it have proximity chat? Yes, it does. And can it be played alone? Yeah, definitely. The main menu gives you the option to choose the size of your submarine. You can drive in any of them, but the smaller sub makes it easier for 1 to 2 people to navigate and kind of work around and fix things up and steer. And while the game would be enhanced with voice chat, I still had fun exploring the underwater depths and collecting items by myself. So would I consider this game Friendslop? No. I feel it works as a single-player game. Next up, content warning. Goal of the game. Film your friends doing scary things to become SpookTube famous. Strongly advised to not go alone. I felt so alone. Just loading in and wandering around your home. Then wandering around underground and coming in contact with monsters. It was so lonely. I'm not saying it wasn't playable, but it just made me sad more than anything, being by myself. I feel the proximity chat and the filming of friends really are what make this game enjoyable, so this one I would title Friendslop. Okay, how about the headliners? You're trying to take pictures of monsters and horrifying things as strange events befall your city. This game is meant to be played with people in proximity chat, but of course you can play by yourself. Oddly enough, even when I was by myself, I found NPCs littering the levels. Okay, littering might be a strong word, but I found a few here and there. Some I had to save, and others just came along with me, and they had guns, and they assisted me and fought off monsters. Up to this point, all the games I had played before just had horrifying creatures attacking me. This was the first game with friendly entities, and that made me feel not so alone. I mean, I didn't feel like I was interacting with a guard outside of Whiterun, but still, I wasn't alone, in a sense. I would argue the headliners is right there on the edge of being Friendslop, but I'm gonna give it a pass just because of the NPCs. If not for the NPCs, then yeah, no, I probably wouldn't have wanted to play this by myself. Let's move on to Among Us. In this game, you're just trying to figure out who the imposter is. It's basically Werewolf or Mafia, but space-themed. So does it have proximity chat? No, but with the mod you can get it. And can it be played alone? No. I mean, it kind of can. There's a practice mode, but it's full of dummies that really don't do anything, and it doesn't really match the main gameplay of the game, where you're trying to work with people to figure out who the monster is and who's the imposter. So it doesn't have proximity chat without mods and can't be played alone. This one is kind of tricky. As a standalone game, I don't believe it's Friendslop, but with the mod, I think it's deserving of the title. Next up, Chained Together. You're attempting to climb out of the pits of hell. That's basically it. This game is meant to be played with friends to create more of a challenge. Being tethered together is difficult as you're trying to move around different obstacles. But the game is perfectly playable as a single-player game, and from what I saw online, not playing with someone just makes the game easier. When it comes to proximity chat, there is none. Most of the people that do play this game with friends just use a third-party voice chat program like Discord, or they just use their phones. I really don't think this game should be considered Friendslop. Alright, last game on my list is Peak, a game where you and your friends crash land on an island and need to climb to the top in order to be rescued. It has a fun climbing mechanic, strange obstacles, and elements of a survival game. Down here in the corner is a hunger and health bar that can be replenished as you scavenge up resources from the wreck of the plane and from the island itself. Does this game have proximity chat? Yes, it does. And was it fun playing it by myself? 100%. This might be one of the best climbing games I've ever played, and I've played a few. I've played Climber, Peaks of Yore, Valley Peaks, and I would have kept playing this one except for I had to stop so I could continue onward with this video. This game does not get the Friendslop label from me. The term Friendslop started out as a way to bag on multiplayer games that require people to play them. I think that's a valid thing to be frustrated about, but I also don't think the name Friendslop is the best. It's coming from a place of negativity as opposed to being a warning. If I was to argue a name change, I would recommend Solo Slop or Loner Slop, with the idea that games with this name attached to them are multiplayer games that don't function well as a single player experience. And as a result, the game feels kinda sloppy. And that's less in a sense of being negative towards these games, but more as a warning that you need to play this game with people or it just won't function well. And you won't really have any fun. It's okay to enjoy different types of games. There are games out there for everyone, and I don't feel like we need to be negative toward people for enjoying what they enjoy. Especially if it's a game meant to be enjoyed with friends. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. Alright, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you had some fun. Hope you maybe learned something kind of interesting. And maybe found a game you want to give a try now. And yeah, you know what? Until next time. Bye.